Thank you for tuning in, Central Georgia. We're going to take an extended look at your weekend forecast here on 13 WMAZ Plus. First things first, we crossed over into the 8th month of the calendar year, so we now have our official totals for your July rainfall. And yes, we finally got one day on the very last day of the month where we actually recorded some decent rainfall, about just over a half an inch of rainfall on July 31st. But it still did not put our total over the month of July, at least at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, over the 1 inch mark. So on average, we typically see about 4.8 inches of rain during the month of July. And it is worth noting that our totals were so low this month, it actually caused this number to decrease by about 4/100ths of an inch. Of course, that record of 18 inches back in 1994, we didn't even sniff anywhere close to that. So it was a very dry July, and you can see at Middle Georgia Regional Airport in southern Bibb County, it put us in the exceptionally dry category, and we've seen a substantial tick down in terms of your year departure of rain. So taking a look at it, we are hovering about 1.25 inches above average where we should be this time of year, because May and June were very wet months. But as we moved into the month of July, rain was very hard to come by, nearly 4 inches below where we should have been for the month of July. But it is worth noting, this is just up in the Macon area. This isn't going for some areas like our southernmost counties, Crisp, Wilcox, getting into Telfair and Wheeler counties. Those counties definitely got a lot of rain. They were definitely totaling a couple of inches every time we were showing those 24 or 48-hour rainfall graphics. So I would suspect it was definitely not a dry July in our southernmost counties. And this 2025 rainfall graphic is as of July 31st. We do have a good amount of rain in store as we kick off the month of August. So that's going to be the main talking point of this extended forecast. But we also have to check in on our drought monitor during periods that are very dry like we've just gone through. And you can see abnormally dry conditions extend for almost every county here in central Georgia. Of course, a couple are left out, and like we were talking about, our southernmost counties, they've definitely seen their fair share of rain. Our westernmost counties, Upson and Taylor counties, I think completely find themselves out of whatever abnormally dry conditions do stretch across the state. And down in southwest Georgia, probably not the best for farming right now, but a moderate drought in some spots as you approach Lake Seminole down there in the southwest corner of the state of Georgia. So this yellow shade, hopefully this is the only shade that we do see. Of course, like I have been alluding to, we have our fair share of rain in the forecast going into that first week of July. So hopefully we can see all of these dry conditions alleviated. But this drought monitor, it was as of this past Tuesday. Don't quite know if the rain over the 2 days past that really did enough in order to completely take away those abnormally dry areas, but it's something we'll continue to keep a very close eye on. And it's really not worth noting too much until we get into the moderate or maybe even severe drought categories. Right now, we're just kind of in that level 1 risk if you were to compare this to those typical SPC outlooks that we do show you. So your headlines as we head into the weekend. One last day of scorching heat. That will be on Friday. And then as we transition into Saturday and Sunday, we're cooling down, and actually meaning cooling down this time, not putting those air quotes around the word cool, because our temperatures are going to hover well below average and well below the 90-degree mark. We could even have a day or two where we're forecasting some upper 70s in the forecast in light of lots of clouds and lots of rain. So that's what you will notice, the common theme. Each and every day you will see some increasing rain chances. And of course, the rain is looking fairly widespread over the course of this weekend and into most of next week. So in terms of the almanac, this is Thursday afternoon's high temperature, 98 degrees. We just continue to go above what the models are forecasting. 94 is the average high temperature around this time of year. And very thankful that we're not getting close to record-breaking territory. In fact, this past week, we did in fact break a record, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But about a ½ inch of rain, that was good enough to at least put us back above the inch mark for our year departure of rain, and we continue to see those hours of daylight get slimmer and slimmer. Sunrise on Thursday morning was at 6:48. Sunset was around 8:33, so that sunset getting a little bit earlier and that sunrise continuing to get later. So in terms of daylight hours each and every day, they are steadily shrinking, but you're really not going to notice much of a difference until we get into daylight saving time ending once we go into, I believe it is November, possibly. I'll have to look forward in the calendar for that, but it's not necessarily in the near future. The next couple of months, we're still going to see some pretty late sunsets, and that's all you really need to know. So we did have our hottest day of 2025 so far earlier this past week. July 27th, this past Monday, we clocked a high temperature of 102 degrees. So not only was that the hottest day that we've had in nearly 400 days here in central Georgia, but it also prompted some heat alerts all across the area. But on average, we typically see that first 100-degree day on July 2nd all time. So this was definitely trending behind average, but nowhere near the latest first 100-degree day that we ever had on record. That came September 18th, and the earliest first 100-degree day we ever had came on May 26th. And we always talk about that because that was only just a couple of years ago. You may remember it in 2019. So your forecast for your Friday specifically, another heat advisory. In fact, the 7th day in a row that we found ourselves in some form of a heat alert. Yes, it has been a very hot spell to round out the month of July. Afternoon showers and storms continue to pop up each afternoon and continue into the evening and nighttime hours because your high temperatures are very warm. 97 for a high temperature on Friday. That, of course, is going to feel even warmer. Take a look at your heat index graphic right now, topping out around 105, so definitely not as bad as it has been in recent days, but that's still going to be plenty hot, and it can be potentially dangerous heat if you spend an extended or a prolonged period of time outdoors. Talking about your heat alerts for your Friday afternoon, until 8 p.m. on Friday is what we have this heat advisory in place for. Feels like numbers up to 106, which once again, earlier this past week, we saw the potential for widespread heat indices of 112 degrees, and it in fact did prompt an extreme heat warning, something that we don't see all the time here in central Georgia. You will notice Upson and Lamar counties along with this. If any of you are tuning in from Pike County, Spalding County, the farther up to the north and the northwest you live, you're not finding yourselves under any of these heat advisories or heat alerts for your Friday. So your streak has come to a conclusion. However, you guys are still going to be hot. It's just that we're picking up on some rain chances popping up a little bit earlier, farther up to the north and the northwest. So whatever does pop up in terms of blistering heat indices on Friday afternoon is going to be fairly short-lived. So let's talk about the last time that we saw some kind of heat that we did see this past week. And of course, we were mentioning June 26, 2024. We hit 102 degrees. And in fact, that was our last 100-degree day that we saw before we moved into Monday. And in fact, Tuesday did clock another 100-degree mark on the dot for what that high temperature was recorded for. In terms of your extreme heat warnings, I did mention that's not something that we see each and every year here in central Georgia. So the last time we saw one of those, August 15th of 2023. So that was nearly 2 years ago, the last time that we saw an extreme heat warning. We went the entire summer last year without seeing anything above heat advisory criteria. So it definitely was blistering hot, and a change of pace is going to be very welcome. But for your Friday afternoon forecast specifically, still a couple of tips and tricks that we want to inform you about that will come in handy during some potentially dangerous heat. Number one, make sure that you're keeping a close eye on your pets, your children, and any elderly groups, because those groups are going to be more susceptible to really feeling the heat and the impacts of some of that heat exhaustion. Especially don't leave your pets or children in vehicles whatsoever. Even if it's for just a couple of minutes, those vehicles can warm up very, very quickly. So of course you don't want to leave them in a vehicle in terms of the car being turned off. Of course, if you do have the AC on, that is going to be more conducive, but still don't try to leave your pets or children unattended in vehicles whatsoever, no matter what the situation is, even if we're hot or even if we're not so hot. Drink plenty of water, and that goes for electrolytes as well. Make sure that you're finding a source of hydration frequently throughout each and every afternoon. And along with that, we have many people that are out working on job sites, construction workers, landscape workers. So make sure that you're wearing plenty of sunscreen throughout the day, because you may dodge that rain a little bit farther in the afternoon than you're anticipating. And of course, make sure to wear some protective clothing. That means long sleeves, that means pants, maybe a bucket hat or some kind of neckwear in order to block that sunshine. Along with that, sunglasses are going to come in quite in handy while we do have some sunshine in the forecast. And some signs of heat-related illnesses that we'd like to inform you about. If you're feeling any of the symptoms listed on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen, of course, make sure that you're making it an immediate concern to go somewhere in the shade, somewhere inside in the AC, somewhere where it's just a little bit cooler, because that means you're experiencing some signs of heat exhaustion, which we do see very frequently during the summertime months, but you don't want that, or those symptoms to necessarily move over to the right side of your screen, because a heat stroke, that's going to be a more severe heat-related illness. And the main difference between the two is if you're experiencing a heat stroke, you're not seeing much sweating whatsoever. You're not feeling all of maybe that condensation on your body, but you will have excessive sweating going on if you are experiencing some general heat exhaustion. So once again, just look out for yourself, because sometimes you may just skip over the heat exhaustion symptoms and go straight over to a heat stroke, and that's never something that we want to happen during the summertime months. And of course, even though it is transitioning into August, July typically probably one of our warmest months on the calendar year, we do know August is mighty hot as well. So with temperatures forecasted even above 95 degrees, especially for Friday itself, make sure you're keeping your pets off the concrete and asphalt, those harder surfaces that can absorb heat a lot quicker. So with a high temperature of, say, 97 on Friday afternoon, then 140, add a couple degrees to that, and add a couple of degrees to that 155 degree mark. Yes, that is already blistering hot. Don't even want to picture that. And if it's too hot for yourself to be outside, well, I guarantee you it is too hot for your furry friends to be outside. Just want to make sure that you're looking out for all of your loved ones when you do have some potentially dangerous heat in the forecast. But now let's go into some of the good news, because obviously it's been a very hot spell. We just broke it down by the numbers, and we do have some relief in store, and it's going to come courtesy of this frontal boundary just to the north of us right now. That's going to continue to push into central Georgia throughout the day on Friday, and then it's going to park itself. It's going to drape itself across portions of central Georgia, which will lead to widespread cloud cover, will lead to some widespread rain chances in the form of showers and storms. But it's also what's happening behind the frontal boundary that's going to pertain to your forecast. So as this frontal boundary continues to push farther and farther south, we're actually going to look at a wedge setup to take place. So we're going to have some high pressure centered up here in areas like Kentucky, the Ohio Valley region, and then this low pressure center right over here is going to continue to move off the Atlantic coast. Well, you see the arrows, which direction that they're spinning. So you have counterclockwise direction with low pressure centers. High pressure centers are going to be the exact opposite. You're going to have clockwise rotation. So if you have winds, say with the high pressure system centered right here going clockwise, that's going to continue to funnel them down, or funnel any slightly cooler and drier air down the Appalachian Mountains. The mountains are going to kind of act as a blocking mechanism, so all that cooler and drier air will continue to creep through the Carolinas and into portions of north and northeast Georgia. And then this low pressure center, it's going to continue to enhance that flow. So if it moves off the Atlantic coast, you have that counterclockwise rotation. So that's just a perfect tunnel of winds down here into the state of Georgia. And eventually it is going to start to propel maybe some slightly cooler and some slightly drier air. We'll check in with what all of the future view graphics do say coming up here over the next couple of minutes. So 2 p.m., just past lunchtime on your Friday afternoon, rain chances already bubbling up. A couple of showers and some storms are going to begin to pop up as you progress later in the afternoon. Those temperatures continue to get warmer. It's going to be a more suitable environment for that convective activity. So warm air rising, cool air sinking, and what is that warm air rising going to lift? All that surface moisture that we have present, because it's been a very, very muggy atmosphere. But like I was alluding to, we may have some slightly drier air trying to enter your forecast as we go into Saturday, more so Sunday. It's going to take a while for that drier air to make its push down into the southeast. But now we go into Saturday, the first half of it. I put this, actually this is at the midnight hour, so this is continuing into your Friday night, excuse me. I was thinking that said 12 p.m., but the first half of your Saturday, we're going to start to see that flow in from the north and the northeast, and that's going to push some cloud cover in. Along with this cloud cover, it's already going to be a pretty gloomy atmosphere, but you can have some very light showers, some isolated sprinkles like you're seeing there on Future View. But then as we progress through the day on Saturday, a lot of that cloud cover tries to break apart, but then cloud cover associated with the rain popping up ahead of the stationary boundary that's stalling over us is going to create good widespread rain chances. Now right now, it still looks like the farther south and southwest that you live, that's where your greater chances of rain are going to be, and still once again in the form of showers and storms. But as we go into the day on Saturday, we could see some of this rain try to creep up a little bit farther to the north and the northeast. before we go into Saturday night. And once again, those temperatures going to be slightly cooler. Each time you go into the nighttime hours, you're losing any of that surface heat that you are getting throughout the day. And like you just saw, it's not going to be a completely cloudy Saturday, so that's why your high temperature on Saturday will be a little bit warmer than what we have for Sunday. You will get some peaks of sunshine throughout the day on Saturday, but then we go overnight into early Sunday morning. Take a look at this. That cloud cover is not wavering whatsoever. We still have plenty of rain in the forecast, plenty of showers, maybe even some low-end thunderstorms. I think everything will stay below severe criteria during the overnight and early morning hours, but of course this time of year, you can never throw anything out of the realm of possibility. Going into your Sunday afternoon, more rain chances start to pop up. You may occasionally get a peak of sunshine, but overall the cloud cover is going to at least dominate your forecast. And of course, messy conditions with some rainy skies are going to be in the picture. Not only just kind of your typical isolated thunderstorm or isolated shower like we have seen in typical summertime days, but this is looking to be more widespread because it has a focal point of some organization, which will be that stationary boundary. And Future View takes us all the way out to 3 a.m. on Monday. So speaking of some of those storms, obviously each and every day during the summertime months, you can run the chance of having a strong to maybe even a potentially severe thunderstorm, even if we're in these storm outlooks whatsoever or not. But it does look like, given the organization along this boundary, that the SPC is picking up on it and really wanting to cover the bases, since we'll have more forcing associated with some lift courtesy of that stationary boundary. So we could see maybe some slightly widespread showers and storms. I do believe the showers and storms themselves will be widespread, but in terms of the severe weather, just really covering the bases with this level 1 out of 5 risk for a couple of storms that are on the stronger end, that are on the severe end. So the potential threats with some of the stronger weather would be some gusty winds from about the 40 to 60 mile per hour range. That's going to be in isolated and localized spots where you're getting the heaviest rainfall. You're seeing some of those dark reds pop up on the satellite and radar picture. Heavy downpours, so a lot of these showers and storms are going to try to sit over the same areas. We have been running a little bit dry as of recently, so of course maybe some of the soil is a little bit looser. You're obviously going to want to look out for the combination of those gusty winds and very saturated soils that can make things like trees more prone to being blown over. And typically what you see during your summertime months and your thunderstorms of always, lightning. Lots and lots of lightning, and where you do see lightning clustering up, you're starting to hear rumbles of thunder every couple of seconds. That's going to indicate where your core of heaviest rainfall is. And along with that lightning, you can even have the potential for some small hail in the forecast that we typically see more often in the summertime months. But not only do we have a storm outlook for your Friday, we also have one for our southernmost counties as we go into Saturday. Once again, just like I was saying, the farther south and southwest that you live, closer to where that boundary is, you're going to have a greater chance of seeing some rain in the forecast as opposed to just cloud cover. And the farther north and northeast that you live, especially on Saturday, you could see some more peaks of sunshine than the rest of central Georgia. Maybe you go a little bit, about 2 or 3 degrees above what the actual high temperature is. But overall, that's still not going to be bad, especially compared to Friday and compared to the 102 and 100 degree mark that we hit this past Monday and Tuesday. So already really good chances of a shower or storm on Friday afternoon, but we see even more of an uptick on Saturday and Sunday. And take a look at the change in the icons. You see a good amount of sunshine on this icon right here because it's going to be partly cloudy skies for the first half of the day, getting plenty of sunshine, and then as those temperatures warm up, it will create a more conducive environment for some showers and storms, but mostly cloudy skies for your Saturday and maybe entirely cloudy skies as you go into Sunday. That's why you see 88 in the forecast for Saturday and then an 80 forecasted for a high on Sunday. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Our average this time of year is 94 degrees for a high temperature. This is 14 degrees below that 94 degree mark. So finally getting a bit of a cool spell as we go into the second half of the weekend, really second 2/3 of your weekend, because a high temperature of 88 doesn't feel bad whatsoever. I think you're going to notice the humidity more than anything in terms of what you do feel outside, not that blistering heat that we have been dealing with. So if we play future view out all the way through this weekend, this is going along with the latest model runs that we did just show you. Some areas not going to catch too much rain whatsoever, maybe about 1/10 of an inch in Milledgeville, 4/10 of an inch in Sandersville. Don't get locked into what your location does say and the specific totals, just more so think of this range right here. And it does look like our fair share of areas, especially in south central Georgia, running anywhere from about the 1 inch to the 2 inch range, even some isolated totals in some areas that are going to be even higher than those numbers, maybe up to 3 or 4 inches if you do catch a lot of those heavier showers or some of the heavier rainfall associated with some thunderstorms. So your afternoon high temperatures, they are going to hang out below average and in the 80s for the foreseeable future. Just have to get to that first day of August, which is continuing with that same summertime heat we've had all throughout the month of July. 88 degrees for a high on Saturday. That's already 6 degrees below average, and we haven't seen highs in the 80s in what feels like weeks, maybe even going back into the end of June around 4th of July timing, where we actually had some drier air in the forecast. But a high of 80 on Sunday, 81 on Monday, so Sunday and Monday going to be very similar forecasts, and then maybe some more sunshines in the picture by the time we get to Tuesday. So let's talk about that slightly cooler and drier air. Does it make its appearance by the time we get into Saturday afternoon? Well, this does look a little bit better, especially the farther north that you live. But I mean, right now where you see this darkest green color, that's going to be just to the south of where that stationary boundary is. So this kind of dividing line right here is going to be a good indication of where your boundary is sitting. But up to the north and the northeast, you see those winds coming in from the north and the northeast. And along with that, it's going to try to push this light green color, maybe even some shades of no color whatsoever, especially if you're going to the mountains this weekend. You're really going to feel that drier air. But it does look like we finally see at least a little bit of relief from the super muggy air that we've been feeling as of recently. So as we go into the long range models, you see that widespread rain chances going to hang out in the picture throughout your Monday and throughout your Tuesday. But then once we get into Wednesday and Thursday, we do see a little bit less agreement, but still plenty of shades of green or blue in the near vicinity of Georgia. So this does look like above average rain chances. We pick it up towards the end of the work week next week, 5 p.m. on Thursday, and going all the way to Friday, where it still looks like yes, we have plenty of enough to create some pretty decent rain chances all throughout next week. But the good news about that is it will keep those numbers at bay. Your high temperatures are going to be nowhere near the triple-digit mark in terms of seeing widespread rain and widespread cloud cover. So something else we have to check in. Now we're in the month of August, and we'd like to talk about the tropics and just make sure that we're checking in, letting you know ahead of time if there's any areas that we should be looking out for. Well, good news. Still no activity expected within the next 7 days. It's been relatively quiet since we got Tropical Storm Chantal. We've had a couple of areas that have had chances of developing, but they haven't really had a conducive environment to do so. And back over in the central Atlantic, we see maybe a faint color of some gray, maybe some brown over there where you see that Atlantic Ocean label. That's going to be your Saharan dust that's continuing to make a less than conducive environment for tropical development. So hurricane frequency, the official peak happens on September 10th, and on average, August starts to see that uptick in activity. Our first hurricane averagely occurs on August 11th. Right now, at the pace we're going, it doesn't look like we're actually going to trend ahead of average or right on par for where we should be, but anything can happen over the course of the next week. We'll have to keep a close eye on it, but between August and October, so August, September, and getting into the beginning of October, that's our most active portion of hurricane season. You can see this red shaded area and this yellow shaded area. Well, you can see where those numbers kind of peak up here, and this is going to be your frequency of tropical storms, frequency of hurricanes, and right here, kind of just past August 1st, all the way to October 1st. That's where the frequency of these tropical systems does get to be the most. So that's where we're going to be on the lookout for as we transition into the month of August. And of course, we're not going to keep our eye off the ball until we get sometime into the later portion of October. So your 7-day forecast, it looks mighty pleasant for a change of pace. Of course, it's not going to be a very conducive outdoor plans forecast, but keep the umbrella, keep the rain jacket handy. I do believe that you will enjoy a lot of these cooler temperatures, especially given how hot we have been this past week. Take a look at this, 80 and 81 on Sunday and Monday. That's at the bottom end of the range for how high our boxes go. Typically, we have our range set at about 80 to 100 degrees during the summertime months. So each degree, you'll see that box get a little bit higher. So the very top, you will see these boxes max out at the 100 degree mark, and at the very bottom, they're not going to go any farther than 80 degrees down. So we're seeing a little gap between the icon right here and your highs and lows forecasted. In terms of your low temperatures, we actually will feel maybe a little bit of relief, a couple of upper 60s possibly during the morning hours. So maybe feeling a tad bit cooler, but overall, your low temperatures are not going to change too much. So make the most of this trend, because take a look at your temperature outlook as we go into August 8th through 14th. That's going to be starting on next Friday, going about to the next Thursday, so kind of into the middle of the month of August. We have a good chance, maybe about 2 boxes over to the right of normal right here, good chance of seeing some above normal temperatures. And you can see that this slightly lighter shade is across states like Alabama, Georgia, getting up into Tennessee. But all around us, there is a darker red color, and that's going to be an even greater chance of seeing some above normal temperatures. So I would expect some highs to make their climbs back into the mid 90s, maybe even the upper 90s as we go into this extended forecast past your 7-day. And in terms of the precipitation outlook, a good probability of seeing some above normal rainfall, which wouldn't be a bad thing whatsoever. I just talked about how dry we've been in the month of July, just 1 box over to the right of near normal. So looking ahead, back to school, we got it kicked off this past Tuesday, and we're going to continue that into next week. We have even more Central Georgia school districts heading back to the classroom. Labor Day, if you're searching for that first 3-day weekend, if you're watching this maybe after your first day of school, well, that will come on the very first day of September. So once you get into August 30th, that's going to be a big day for college football. The 31st will be that following Sunday, and then Labor Day itself will be on the first day of September, that following Monday. Peak of hurricane season, on average, we typically see it around September 10th. And if you're really looking forward to these cooler temperatures and want to know when they're going to finally start settling in full time on your 7-day forecast, well, your first day of fall will be coming up on September 22nd. That is a little bit less than 2 months away. So there is relief in sight in terms of that blistering heat. So as we go into Monday, it's going to be another big day for the classroom. Macon County, Twiggs County, and here in Bibb County, we are heading back to the classroom. And then along with those 3 school districts, Baldwin County, Hancock County, and Jasper County, a few of our northernmost counties here in Central Georgia, hitting that first day and heading back and hitting the books. But once again, actually, I believe this is just a repeat right here, Baldwin and Hancock County. So I believe we're adding 6 more to the total of all the school districts heading back. This past Friday was a busy day. We had 11 school districts head back to the classroom here in Central Georgia. But be sure to tune into 13 WMAZ Morning as we go into Monday. And that's where we will be live. Megan Western and Naomi Washington going out live and talking about everything you need to know before heading back to the classroom. Specifically here in Bibb County, we'll have 2 more days, August 5th and August 6th, of some Central Georgia school districts heading back to the classroom. And then that will be that. Everyone will be back into school. And of course, we're going to hold on to the summertime weather for the foreseeable future. But once we get into September, we'll probably see some cooler spells that are a little bit more frequent. And if you're just like me, I know you can absolutely not wait for the fall. So thanks for tuning in to your extended weekend forecast here on 13 WMAZ+. We'll see you back at 10:30 a.m. on Monday for another live stream and a look at what's ahead.